Making the simple complicated is commonplace. Making the complicated simple, awesomely simple, that's creativity, says Charles Mingus. It makes an enormous difference whether your simplicity is voluntarily chosen or involuntarily imposed. For example, consider two people who ride bicycles to work in order to save gasoline. The first person voluntarily chooses to ride a bicycle and derives great satisfaction from the physical exercise, the contact with the outdoors, and the knowledge that he or she is conserving energy. Whereas the second person bikes to work because of the force of circumstances. This may be due to the high cost of gasoline or the inability to afford a car. Here, instead of delighting in the ride, the second individual is filled with resentment with each push of the pedals. This person yearns for the comfort and speed of an automobile and is indifferent to the benefit derived from riding a bicycle. However, to outward appearance, these two people are engaged in identical activities. Yet the attitudes and experiences of each are quite different. These differences are crucial in determining whether or not bicycling would prove to be a workable and satisfying response for any given person to energy shortages. For the first person, it would. For the second person, it is clearly not a satisfying solution, and perhaps not even a workable one. This example illustrates how important it is that our simplicity be consciously chosen, not externally imposed. Thus, voluntary simplicity, then, involves not only what we do, but also the intention with which we do it. This video focuses on the simplicity that is a consciously chosen simplicity. The mainstream media often shows simplicity as a path of regress instead of progress. Simplicity is frequently presented as anti-technology and anti-innovation, a backward-looking way of life that seeks a romantic return to a bygone era. However, in reality, uncluttered simplicity means taking charge of lives that are too busy, too stressed, and too fragmented. Simplicity means cutting back on clutter, complications, and trivial distractions, both material and non-material, and focusing on the essentials, whatever those may be for each of our unique lives. As Henry David Thoreau said, our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify. Or, as Plato wrote, in order to seek one's own direction, one must simplify the mechanics of ordinary, everyday life. According to the philosophy of simple living, simplicity means direct, clear, free of pretense or dishonesty. Simplicity means free of vanity and undue display. Simplicity means free of secondary complications and distractions. Wisdom of Ages says, in living more simply, we encounter life more directly, in a first-hand and immediate manner. We need little when we are directly in touch with life. Leo Tolstoy says, it is when we remove ourselves from direct and wholehearted participation in life that emptiness and boredom creep in. It is then that we begin our search for someone or something that will alleviate our dissatisfaction. A key assumption in consumer societies has been the idea that money buys happiness. Historically, there is a good reason for this assumption. Until the last few generations, a majority of people have lived close to subsistence. So an increase in income brought genuine increases in material well-being. For example, food, shelter, healthcare, and this has produced more happiness. However, in a recent time, levels of material well-being have moved beyond subsistence to unprecedented abundance. Today, developed nations have had several generations of unparalleled material prosperity, and a clear understanding is emerging. More money does bring more happiness when we are living on a very low income. However, once our income reaches the minimum threshold of $13,000 per year, additional income adds relatively little to our happiness, and other factors such as personal freedom, meaningful work, and social tolerance add much more. Scientific evidence support this claim. Often, a doubling or tripling of income in developed nations has not led to an increase in perceived well-being. Tim Kasser, in his book The High Price of Materialism, assembles considerable research showing the more materialistic values are at the center of our lives, the more our quality of life is diminished. Tim Kasser found that people who placed a relatively high importance on consumer goals, such as financial success and material acquisition, reported lower levels of happiness and higher levels of depression, anxiety, antisocial behavior, and physical problems such as headaches. Thus, the bottom line is that there is a weak connection between income and happiness once a basic level of economic well-being is reached. Best example for this are the cattle-herding Maasai of Kenya and the Inuit of northern Greenland, as their expressed levels of happiness equal to that of American multimillionaires. According to the science of happiness, if we worried less about material appearances and thought more about soulful connections with others, we could put our life energy into creating robust, healthy, and rewarding relationships, and it would be enormously helpful to redefine our happiness progress. Patrick Rhone, in his book Enough, writes that to live sustainably, it is vital that we each decide how much is enough. According to Patrick Rhone, simplicity is a double-edged sword. Living with either too little or too much will diminish our capacity to realize our potentials. Therefore, balance occurs when there is neither material excess nor deficit. To find this balance in our everyday lives requires that we understand the difference between our needs and wants. Needs are those things that are essential to our survival and our growth, whereas wants are those things that are extra, that gratify our psychological desires. For example, we need shelter in order to survive, but we may want a huge house with many extra rooms that are seldom used. We need basic medical care, but we may want cosmetic plastic surgery to disguise the fact that we are getting older. We need functional clothing, but we may want frequent changes in clothing style to reflect the latest fashion. Therefore, only when we are clear about what we need and what we want, we can get away the excess and find a middle path between extremes. Discovering this balance in everyday life is central to our learning of simplicity, and no one else can find it for us. Excess in either direction, too much or too little, is complicating, says Buddha. In the Hindu tradition, there is the idea of aparigraha, or greedlessness, and non-possessiveness. Aparigraha, as an approach to life, it means to take only what we need and to find satisfaction in that. Perhaps the most developed expression of a middle way between material excess and deprivation comes from the Buddhist tradition. While Buddhism recognizes that basic material needs must be met in order to realize our potentials, it does not consider our material welfare as an end in itself. Rather, it is a means to the end of awakening to our deeper nature as spiritual beings. The middle way of Buddhism moves between mindless materialism on the one hand and needless poverty on the other. Hence, the result is a balanced approach to living that harmonizes inner and outer development. There is no cookbook with clear recipes for the simple life. Even Henry David Thoreau was also clear that no simple formula could define the worldly expression of a simpler life. He said, "I would not have anyone adopt my mode of living on my account. I would have each one be very careful to find out and pursue his own way." Because simplicity has as much to do with each person's purpose in living as it does with his or her standard of living, it follows that there is no single, right and true way to live more simply. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more empowering content. Thanks for watching.